This is Caroline, and this time I'm not going to set her on fire.
You hear noises, I assume the pug's going. Maybe not. Okay, your discretion, Lincoln. Nice run.
In this video, I'd like to talk about synergies. Now, we've all seen the Terran 2-piece with the Counter Command 2-piece. Very complementary set bonuses there. With Caroline's build, on the other hand, we have a lot of less used synergies. In this case, we have an engineer and a science pilot. And what that means, we have a ship that sometimes has energy issues, unless you're using supremacy. Well, it's an engineer, and engineers really don't have energy issues. Plus, it's a ship that's not particularly tanky. Well, that's, once again, not a big issue with an engineer. Beyond that, given that the power issues for an engineer are relatively low, all of these plasma dopers, these are all EPG instead of Drain-X. And since you get both the EPG and the plasma-based exotic damage, you can run a PEP to a very high effect. Now, the PEP, while it uses part gens, doesn't use aux. Which means I can run aux to bad, which takes care of all of my cooldowns. Let's take this one step further. I've got a torpedo on this now. Well, that means I'm running supercharged weapons, which is boosting my critical hits. Now, normally I wouldn't run a torpedo for the damage in and of itself, but in this case, this will boost my weapons by a significant amount, but that in and of itself, once again, not a reason to run the torpedo. But once you add all those together and throw in temporal operative, in the case of temporal operative adding a debuff to anything that you've added a damage over time to, suddenly you have the torpedo adding a big old debuff, adding crits, and doing a fair amount of damage in and of itself. And suddenly having a torpedo on a build like this makes sense. So this is a very synergized build. As for the guns, I'm in my record run, I critted 48.55%, and I'm not using the Science Ultimate. So that means I'm using all crit guns instead of damage guns. Not too uncommon to see a Science or an Engineering tune do this. Using Heralds in the back, I would never replace a forward-firing gun with a Herald or a Delphic, because I'd rather have the innate severity that anti-proton gets otherwise. But in the turrets where they're not expected to do as much damage, having the heralds... now, if I were to do this build again... I've had these heralds for a long time. If I were to do this again, I'd use Delphic turrets. But marginally better. The heralds are just fine. In the case of the skill tree, standard fare for my builds, small tweaks. I have my control lamp and lots of drain as usual. Lots of EPG. But all very standard stuff here. Specializations, Intel over Temporal. For personal space traits, no surprises here either. Grace Under Fire for the Miracle Worker. Helmsman for the Evasive Cooldown. A little bit of turn. Inspirational Leader, Self-Modulating Fire. Nadion Bypass, big fan of this. When you pop your Nadion Inversion, you get a damage bonus. Perfect time as well, because when your Nadion Inversion is up is when you're going to have your weapons power at maximum anyway. Which, I mean, ideally you want at all times, but, you know. Point blank shot, because being in a pilot ship, it takes no effort whatsoever to be right up in the enemy's face. Cannon Training, and Fleet Coordinator, and Operative. As I said, nothing too special there. So I have the supercharged weapons, and of course Withering Barrage, because as you saw, this is a cannon build. All hands on deck for some cooldowns, emergency weapon cycle, because any ship that primarily uses energy weapons as its damage is almost always going to be running emergency weapon cycle. Target-rich environment, this is the trait off of the Vengeance. Now, I'm on the fence as to whether or not this is worth it on a Beam Fire at Will build. But Scatter Volley, unlike Beam Fire at Will, Scatter Volley with Withering Barrage is up 14 out of every 15 seconds. So this is up almost the entire time that you're firing. Now, every time you have to restart your Scatter Volley, it has to rebuild all of these counters to get back up to 30%. But with Scatter Volley, it starts to make a lot of sense. Space Rep, I remember there was one in here that didn't make sense. I have Precision. I don't know why I have Tactical Precision. Accuracy... I bet there's a reason why I did that, and I haven't been changing it because I've been doing fairly well with this too. But I don't recall why I'm running Tactical Precision. But of course, Advanced Targeting System and the normal Armor Pen with Energy or Frequency. I'll have to get back to you as whether or not the accuracy works properly. As for Active Reputation, well, pick 4 out of 5. I mean, it's all the same in the end. For stations, have the Scatter Volley 3 with a nice high beta. Tactical Team, Chemo, and Torp Spread. Pilot Team 1, because sometimes the evasive maneuvers isn't ready, although it doesn't come up very often. My 2 Ox to Bats, an emergency power to weapons, and an engineering team. Hazard emitters to put out the fire. Now, destabilizing resonance beam and gravity well, in both of these cases, we're talking about debuffs. The ship may have high part gens, but it's not running any sort of Ox setting because of the Ox to Bat, so these will not do damage in and of themselves. But the gravity well will bring everything into a neat little ball for me to blow everything to bits with my Scatter Volley. And the DRB puts a stacking debuff, so use these on the Transformer doohickeys on the sides, and if you have it ready again on the Tactical Cube at the end. The longer it's firing, the higher the debuff, up to, I believe it's a 50, yeah, up to a 50-point debuff that the DRB will give you. So that's how that's working. I remember in previous videos I forgot to go over this. For the technicians, if you're running Ox to Bat with a Beam Fire at Will build, you do not need 3 of these. If you have 2 of them, that is enough to keep Beam Fire firing with just 1 copy of it. If you're running Scatter Volley, you need 3 because it's a 15-second global, not a 20. Quartermaster for reduced recharge time on all batteries. Now, you may know that, again with Beam Fire at Will, the way that the timing lines up, if you don't have a purple, there's no need for a blue. You might as well just go a green because your battery usage just won't line up. But with Withering Barrage, it's basically up all the time. So you might as well, if you can't afford a purple, go with a blue. If you can afford a purple, get a purple, obviously. I can't. Some stacking crit chance, and as you've seen from my... Well, no, you haven't seen because I haven't actually posted what the DOFs do. It's very common that I'm using something to lower the recharge time on evasive maneuvers because I am too lazy to go and get those deuterium or whatever the hell it's called that speeds you up. So that's the build. And again, a little some abnormal synergies, definitely way off meta. But I hope you've seen some things that you might want to amalgamate. If not, seen some things that at least surprised you. And if you want to copy the build, go for it. If you want to take some small minutiae of it, as well. And if you have any interesting takes or suggestions, love to hear them in the comments box. Until next time, thank you.
Nope. That was botched. I think you were a little late there, Romeo. Ah, that was too late.
No, it's perfect. Actually, if she's laying down and it comes down, that would be awesome.
You got that bound to a macro or something?
This is Caroline, and unlike
Yep.
Nah, go ahead. Oh, that does look good. I forgot my line.
I was gonna go after the first sentence, the first part of that sentence.